It's a pleasure of the board. Supervisor Elias.
Yeah, this has been something we've been discussing since December, and I thank staff and SEIU for the progress they've made on this particular item. And I think that that work has left us in a situation where we still have a difference of opinion, but I think that the board is prepared to make a decision on that today, I hope anyways. What I would suggest to us all is that we, yesterday on the 14th, 2016, SEIU sent in a paid parental leave proposal, number 3, that we all received. I think this is a good proposal. I think it makes sense in that we make sure that in positions that are open, so to speak, while someone's out on parental leave, will not be backfilled. And we need to develop some language in regard to this that I think will take care of our departments in extenuating circumstances and in emergency situations. And I think we should give Mr. Huckleberry the latitude to make that decision when that happens via an appeal process by the appropriate departments and divisions. And I think that's a good compromise. This leave would have to be taken within 3 months of adopting or having a child. 30 days notice to human resources, 6 weeks of leave, concurrent with FMLA. These are all things that staff and the SEIU has agreed on, and Mr. Huckleberry put out a memo to that effect last week. But I am going to make a change in the hopes of coming up with a compromise in this situation, because it is difficult, and I know there's a variety of opinions. The union is requesting 75% of the employee's regular salary during that period of parental leave. I know that staff was looking more at a number of 50%. I think it'd be good to tie this to short-term disability, which is actually 66% of pay. And employees could use their sick time and annual leave to make up that other third of a day so that they could receive 100% salary during this benefit that I think is perfectly appropriate in today's world. It's something that I know my family had to deal with when we adopted our child, and I got a total of 4 days off. And it was not enough for our family to adjust and be able to make the compromises that we needed to make to our household situation. So that's my motion, that we move SEIU's proposal number 3, but instead at 75%, we move it at 66%. Second.
Madam Chair. Supervisor Miller.
I would like to note, my staff did, and Mr. Burke provided a chart that shows that no other counties, cities, or towns on his survey have provided this benefit. Another concern I have is that we have not given the sheriff deputies their step increases that they were when they started their positions. And if we do this, I think it's undermining the amount of money that we could maybe resolve that situation with. And in the private sector, you don't see this. The University of Arizona is the only public agency that I found that does provide parental leave. And only about 12% of private sector workers have access to this type of leave. And I just think that we should look at another way of doing this. One possibility would be what California, New Jersey, and Rhode Island have done. They have an insurance product to fund parental leave. It's similar to short-term disability. I have some documentation here, and that's what they do. They have the employees pay a premium to have this type of coverage, and it's at minimal cost to the employees. I think at this time, with all of the issues that we have with the budget, the issues we have with the deputies, I don't think this is the time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Mr. Huckleberry, I think all board members are concerned as we try to deal with employee compensation since 2008. Supervisor Miller mentioned sheriff's deputies and step increases. I know that there was some discussion, and I participated in some of it. What is the delta? What's the cost of in reinstating the step increases? What would be the cost for next fiscal year? Mr. Bolzami or Mr. Burke?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Huckabee?
If you were to reinstate step increases, and typically step increases are not unique to the sheriff, there have typically been step increases in all pay ranges, and we now call them something different. It's a range. But if you were to do that, I believe we've looked at the number, and it's about $17 million in our best estimate. You could stagger it and reduce the first year impact, but ultimately that's going to catch up with you in the next fiscal year.
And that translates to what in terms of increase in the tax rate if we were to fund it?
If you were funded, it would be obviously 1 penny yields about $750,000, so roughly 25 cents in the tax rate.
Any other comments by board members? I think we've got some real difficult issues as we look at employee compensation, and across the board, this factors into it. I just think we need a comprehensive approach, and I'm struggling on this one because we have limited resources.
I think this is something that affects a small number of people, though, and it is a critical one for those families that go through this, and particularly for those women who have difficult childbirths. It becomes even more crucial to have some time off and assistance from their husband or from their domestic partner. The other thing is that we're under, I would imagine with this going at 66%, as I've suggested, that we're probably at about $400,000. And I think that this could be incorporated into a comprehensive approach that would put our employees in a situation where they'd all see some benefit from this over time. And we can certainly have that discussion about the sheriff's office and the concerns that they have about step increases.
Well, and as Mr. Huckleberry, it's not just the sheriff deputies, it's the workforce, the entire
Right, and that's why I think
workforce.
that this could be incorporated as a part of that comprehensive look at that package. But I think it's something that we should do at this particular juncture. It's something that most modern industrial countries recognize as being a realistic way of dealing with family issues. And I really think it's time that we become leaders in this particular area. I know Tucson Medical Center offers parental leave as well, and the university does as well. I think it's something that for too many years we've thought of as a luxury, but in reality for our families and for women in particular who deal with the difficulties of childbirth and postpartum depression and a whole lot of other things, it takes a while for our family to balance out their household and how things are working. And this is a very effective way, I think, to provide a better opportunity for those families to incorporate the joy of having a child into their family and to spend that time together bonding that they need to during what is very often a very difficult period for folks. Dr.
I share your perspective. My concern is trying to deal equitably with all of these issues that we are facing, we're struggling with, and we simply don't have the cash flow without raising taxes in a time when the economy is not recovering. So just a question, Supervisor. Why did you choose 66? What was wrong? It seems to me 50-50 is the shared sacrifice position. And I'm curious as to why you suggested 66.
Troy, come up with Well, what I was trying to do was come up with a fair compromise between the position of our employees representative and staff, and also tying it to a metric that already exists, which works, which makes a difference, and is already out there in our employee compensation package. And I think it's a more fair way of looking at it, and it gives employees a better chance to have that time and use sick pay. You get 3 days for one day of sick pay that you use, and I think that's appropriate. I was trying to tie it to a metric that's out there as opposed to just kind of throwing it out there without anything to really back it up. That was my thought behind it. I think it's a good, reasonable compromise, and in fact, I think it's the fairest thing that we could do in this particular situation. But again, I reiterate that I think we need to look at it as a part of an overall compensation package so that we're being a little more comprehensive in our approach to it. But this, I think, is an important one for us to deal with today. And we've had a lot of discussion about it over the last few months, and staff has certainly had to spend a lot of time on it. SEIU has spent a lot of time on it. And so looking for that resolution.
Mr. Huckleberry, in terms of the position of the motion that Supervisor Elias has made regarding the 67% of the disability number versus the 50 that the staff is recommending, what's the dollar delta?
Madam Chair, the staff isn't really recommending either. What we looked at was a couple of options, 75, 50. What the delta would be is obviously, we looked at 50 was about 350,000, and that assumes, and those are kind of long-term impacts, simply because we're just adding leave time. That could be used and probably will be used. It could be shrunk over time because, as I pointed out in my memorandum, cat bank use has been pretty low, and my guess is cat bank use will go up if the parental leave remained in the cat bank area.
Well, actually, the proposal from SEIU actually, with the introduction of a countywide paid parental leave policy, we would also propose removing parental leave on the catastrophic leave bank.
Yes.
And again, like you said, Mr. Huckleberry, those are long-term costs as opposed to annualized costs.
Yes, Madam Chair, and that was kind of my point, is that cat bank will go away, and so the delta is probably in the $100,000 range, just off the top of my head. You'd have to calculate it, but it's about between 66 and 50. So it's not material, but in the fact that when we began this discussion, the cost could have been as much as $1.7 million. And so it's been managed down to this amount.
But it's still not revenue neutral.
It is not revenue neutral, and we would prefer to call it expense neutral.
Expense
Which simply means, and we
That's true.
understand what you mean.
Expense neutral.
Yeah. And so, but I think the more important part of the discussion here is whether this is 66 or 50 or 75. We need to begin, and I've talked to the board, and we've sent memorandums previous years, fiscal years, always stressing the monetary value to the employee of benefits, whether it be retirement plans, health insurance, or these type of areas, that they all have to be considered in totality with regard to salary increases. And so there's an important part of the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion by board members? Supervisor Valadez?
Madam Chair, I think you were going to call in.
Well, you look like you wanted to be called on.
I keep going back and forth. You know, as I stated before, I keep going, you know, certainly is this a benefit that some of our employees could actually benefit from, and more importantly, really, their children. And, you know, I've read over and over, and my own wife put it in my reading material from Women's Health magazine, I think I told both of you, where there is a very recognizable and quantifiable health benefit to the child when the mother has this time to spend with that child right after giving birth, both in terms of health and future effects. So there is a direct benefit, and so we understand that there's a plus on that side. Obviously, you brought up the other issue, and on previous meetings I've talked about trying to make it as revenue neutral as possible. And I believe we're calling it expense neutral at this point. But the truth is, part of the reason I seconded the motion is because, as Supervisor Elias was pointing out, I think we need to, in near future discussions, consider this in the totality of all benefits and pay packages as well. It is part of that, not in a vacuum, because we can't afford to do that anymore. So with that knowledge and with the understanding that it is in the range of about 450,000, I'm prepared to go ahead and support it. I'm glad that Supervisor Elias justified it and had a metric, that being disability, not to say that this is not to be tied or be a disability. Short-term disability, right? So that it's quantifiable and certainly precedent setting, which is why I seconded the motion and plan on supporting it.
Okay. What we're talking about the policy, and it's effective what date?
From the beginning of the
Fiscal year. So July 1. Okay.
Yes, please.
And it will come to us as part of the budget packet that way.
That's correct.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Miller?
I agree with, this needs to be done in a comprehensive manner, and that being said, I think it would be best to wait and hold off on this decision so that it could be done in a comprehensive manner. The salaries and benefits are currently done piecemeal, and the county would be better served to put together a comprehensive package with benefit options that fit within a reasonable and a revenue neutral or expense neutral budget. This should include the different insurance products as well as sick leave, vacation leave, and other leave types with these, along with other requested benefits in the package. And then let the employees choose from those. So I'd be more comfortable if we waited and did this in a comprehensive fashion, as everyone seems to be agreeing to now. When you do it piecemeal, you end up with what we've got.
I certainly understand your logic, and I think that we will get another opportunity to review this, which is why I'm going to support it at this point, at the time where we do the budget, through the budget process and final budget adoption. This still has, we still have the ability to influence that final packet, and because of that, I think I'm comfortable supporting it, because we do need to, I absolutely agree with Supervisor Miller, we need to look at the total benefit package, and I think we should do that during the budget process. Any further comments, discussion? Let's do roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
No.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valadez.
Aye.
Chair Brunson.
Aye.